Okay, okay. Forgive me a bit because I'm not bit hack savvy at all about this stream at all. I have a good lot of information about Wagner to do, but it's gonna take a long time to do. Tonight's late, so I thought tonight we'll talk a bit about war crimes, not the actual war crimes, like who actually studies and looks into the war crimes that's happening in Ukraine at the moment. Um, we'll also look at the casualties because the casualties just don't make sense. Um, for a country that's winning or meant to be winning, they're losing land every day. That the amount that the casualties are pretty low compared to who's giving the information out, and we'll look at the groups of people who are giving out the numbers. Then we have there's a guy around the corner. He said with Wagner over in Syria. Um, I asked him to do a live interview. He wouldn't do it, so I sent him around 25 questions. He answered 20. He wouldn't answer five. He has his reasons, maybe. I don't know. He just wouldn't answer. But like Alex Jones today with all the paperwork, lots of paperwork. And maybe I'll start off with who are the people that look into these war crimes. And I think we start off with one we all know, which will be the United Nations, the Independent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine, an organization for security and cooperation in Europe. The OSCE deploys missions under its Moscow mechanism to complete detailed data on potential international humanitarian law violations committed by both sides, which we both know is lies. Like Ukraine to them don't commit war crimes. Only Russia commit war crimes. That's all you see in the news. That's all you see on YouTube. They've even banned Telegram because Telegram is really the only truthful information coming out from the Russian side. You also have you have an organization for the prohibition of chemical weapons, also known as the OPCW. They conduct specialized on-site investigations to confirm and report the legal use of chemical weapons on the battlefield. And as far as I know, um, apart from that prosperous um, prosperous artillery that they use, I don't think chemical weapons have been used at all in Ukraine. I don't know. Then we have the idiots, the court that like calling people war criminals that probably commit war crimes and like calling people that commit war crimes great people like George Bush, Tony Blair, Bibi. You know, well, recently they have put Bibi on the as a war criminal. He had no choice because the International Criminal Court, the ICC, is who I'm talking about, and they operate out of a field office in Kiev of all places. The ICC, they actively investigate atrocities committed in Ukraine and other places, but we're talking about Ukraine, so we'll stick with Ukraine. It acts as a primary international reposting for evidence which has resulted in high profile arrest warrants for senior Russian leadership. Those Russians are never going to be arrested. I don't, I think the last big profile people the ICC have ever arrested were criminals from Sarajevo, the Kosovo War. Apart from that, I don't think they've even nicked anyone. I don't know. Like Trump doesn't even recognise as a legal court, so that just shows you where it is. But the office of the Prosecutor General of Ukraine, the official state organ tracking domestic criminal files, which has recorded in Ukraine's view 150,000 ongoing war crime cases that they're looking into Ukraine. Now I know from at the start of the war when you were near Kiev and Bakhmut, we did see civilians. I remember footage of civilians on push bikes dead. I remember seeing a civilian with his dog lying beside him. I remember seeing a basement that had maybe 30 to 40 bodies in it. And when I do the Wagner story, I will go into that in great detail. Because Wagner were involved in that. They came through Belarus. A lot of people think Wagner entered the Ukraine war at Bakhmut. No, they've been there well before. Um, Wagner's been in Ukraine since 2014 in low numbers, but that's who was training the Hansk and the Hansk People's Republic to fight Azov, which was fair enough as Azov was slaughtering Russians, which is why really this Russia stepped in 22. Um, and some of like these 150 war crimes they're committing, like they're ranging from illegal execution of fighters to infrastructure bombing. Now, infrastructure bombing to me is like, I'll use an example. Like if there's military hardware coming across a bridge and it's a civilian bridge, to me that's a military target. So I think they just make up this as they go along. Like the ICs, the International Criminal Court just pull war crimes out of this. Then we have my favourite group of people, the NGOs. The NGOs. Like what are even NGOs doing in Ukraine? They've no right to be in Ukraine. Like non-government funding organisations. Like George Soros, who's giving them the money? I don't know. But they have a group called the Human Rights Watch. And this is an independent monitor who believes highly precise. These are the words these use. Highly precise field research tracking frontline violations such as illegal civilian targeting in Kherson and human rights violations inside schools. Where were they when the Americans bombed that school in Iran? No sign of them. American flag there. I have it up since the World Cup. Have to take it down. Another NGO, Amnesty International. Amnesty International now. A major global rights defender. That's what they call themselves. Conducting extensive field interviews and satellite imagery analysis that expose unlawful treatment of prisoners of war and attacks on civilian infrastructure. Now, they must have good satellites because like, tonight's just about calling out a bit of bullshit. Because prisoners of war, most prisoners of war from Ukraine go to Rostov. And according to the ones that have been released, you get 23-hour lockup or in a building with no windows. They're not allowed out in the yard. So, like, where is Amnesty International getting satellites that can look at these prisoners of war and how they're being treated? Like, I don't know. Maybe there's camps, like camps like Auschwitz, outdoor camps, which they are looking at. I don't know. I've, I've, I firmly believe Russians torture the prisoners of war anyway. Like, during the Wagner um, research, like some shocking stuff that we will be talking about that make your stomach turn. I might even read a bit tonight called The Goals and Sledgehammer. Um, I'll read it from a book for you. It's it's not nasty. They're not nice people. Then we have the global essential for the responsibility to protect and international advocacy organization providing continuous monitoring and analysis of mass atrocity crimes and synthetic humanitarian law breaches within the Ukraine region. These are the guys that found the mass graves when kind of Ukraine went on the offensive and Russia they thought they beat the Russians, but the Russians actually retreated and set a trap for them. So when they came in with when they got remember the so-called 2023 offensive where they thought they were going to get the Crimea and their tanks were just slaughtered. The tanks just didn't work in Ukraine. They just got muddled down in the mud, just didn't work. And they lost more land. And later on, we're going to be talking about the losses. And the losses just don't make sense to me. They just do not make sense. How a country that's losing land every day, well, when it comes to it, I'll explain it. We also have now like, that's only a couple of the big ones we pick, but Russia also have groups that work on war crimes. Um, he don't really have names. He does have like a branch that work on war crimes, and the primary official body that tracks documents and looks at what criminal proceedings regarding alleged war crimes on behalf of the Russian state is the Investigative Committee of the Russian Federation, and it's the Russian name. I'm not good at Russian names, but it's Sledveni, otherwise known as Homeland or Sledcom. They're the main three that look at war crimes that Ukraine are committing. And because Russia does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC and rejects international accusations of atrocities, its domestic agencies operate under a highly counter-narrative approach. The Russian state frames these tracking efforts around investigating alleged crimes committed by Ukraine forces and leadership against Russian personnel, pro-Russian civilians, and the population of the occupied territories. Um, they do have entities that Moscow put in place into Luhansk and Donetsk because there was atrocities being committed there in 2014. And one of the first ones they put in would have been the Russian Federation Sledcom, directed by a guy called Alexander Bostikin. And this is a powerful guy. This is one of Putin's in the air guys. Know what I mean? Like what he reports back to Putin might be true. It could be just what Putin wants to hear. Um, he's a powerful man, and his agency is a federal agency, and it acts as the Kremlin's main legal instrument in war crimes in the Donbass. It has opened thousands of criminal cases concerning crimes against peace and security of humanity, causing accusing Ukrainian commandos, um, accusing Ukrainian commandos. And well, I lost here for a sec. Ukrainian commandos of lying and killing their own, which I don't think they would, killing their own civilians and blaming it on Russians. We all know how straight that Azov is a Nazi brigade, and they have no problem committing atrocities. They've killed a lot of people. Um, I mean, like we also have the UN dependent International Commission of Inquiry on Ukraine. I mean, I don't know where to get these people. It's an organization for the security and the cooperation in Europe. The OSCE deploys missions under. Do you know what? Sick of them. I'm not even going to go into them. I'm going to turn on to something else. I'm going to look at that they're looking at war crimes there, like, and who investigates them. And I don't trust any of them. And what I'm going to do next, I don't believe any of it. I don't believe none of it because, like, the numbers just do not make sense. The numbers do not make sense. They do not make sense. This is what Ukraine are telling us they've lost. And I used open sources to get these numbers, but everything I looked at, everything I tried to research, it's all pro Ukraine, pro Ukraine, pro Ukraine. Anything Russian is banned. We'll have to get a VPN and have a look because Telegram is gone. Telegram was great. There was good fella on. There was good. There was a good map boy on Telegram, and he done maps and he showed you day by day how much land was took. There some days only 10 meters of land in some places was took, and you could lose like 1,000 soldiers taking that. That was according to him. He's Russian. He's no need to lie because you know what could happen to him in Russia if he's. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of tall builders in Russia and a lot of people that fall out with Putin fall off them. That's why I'm doing this on the ground floor today. But know what I mean? But I might even go into a bunker when I do Wagner because like, the Wagner story is not good at all. Well, open sources tracking projects like losses verified by independent groups have documented over 96,000 named Ukrainian fighter deaths. Now, this document was 18 months old. And since then, I think Russia have really ran them up a lot more. So the deaths are more than that. But even 18 months ago, 96,000 deaths, I think isn't true. With total deaths on the missing estimated quite highly, quite higher. So literally what they're saying is that more likely Ukraine told them there's 96,000 deaths, but they're literally saying it's quite higher. And they're not counting the bodies they can't find, which probably got burned in armed with APCs, tanks, or are probably lying rotting in fields. So they're saying that's quite higher since the 2022 invasion. Estimates from intelligence agencies place overall military casualties dead and wounded in the hundreds of thousands for both sides. So they're not giving numbers. But Zelensky, or whatever here with the Ukraine source is happy to tell us there's 96,000. Right? This is what doesn't make sense. We've 96,000 dead Ukrainians, right? But we've more than 550,000 military personnel and over 25,000 civilians are estimated to have been killed since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 22. So if 96,000 of that, over 500,000, are Ukrainian, that's telling us the rest are Russian or civilians. That's what we take from that. Because both nations fleet their losses are strictly classified, they don't like giving out numbers. Um, they really stay secrets. But there's independent analysts, intelligence agencies, and international agencies and international bodies rely on open source intelligence and satellite data to complete different totals. Now, I had to write this down because I wouldn't remember this, and this made me laugh. The Center for Strategic and International Studies, Ukraine, 198,000 soldiers killed up to 24. Russia, 400 to 450,000. But still, Russia keep on taking Ukrainian land. Like, where does it stop? The Center for Strategic and International Studies, Russia, 400 to 450,000 once again. Ukraine, bit higher, 125,000 to 150,000 estimated. Here's the official government's claims. Russia claimed they've lost 198,000 soldiers. Ukraine claimed they've lost 43 to 55,000. But still, who's winning the war? This is where it gets funny, because we're going into the UK Western intelligence now. Russia, 500,000 soldiers. Ukraine, 60,000 to 100,000. Right? Now we have the BBC, Russia, and a group called Media Zona. Now, Media Zona, I like their kind of work. The BBC, Russia, 459,342, very precise, isn't it? The 559,251. And in brackets beside that, it said, including projections. So that means they're giving numbers there where they're including projected deaths, which is lawyers, propaganda, lawyers. The same people say for Ukraine, 96,000. But the thing about this media owner have put down the 96,000 that they have. He says that they only put down the 96,000 because they're the names of confirmed deaths from gravestones they've been at. So there's 96,000 people buried. So like, but we all know in Ukraine there's probably hundreds of thousands of bodies just rotting away in trenches. No one goes back for, especially Russians. Repeat the Russians, they just left there to die. You know what I mean? Like Ukraine kind of are a bit more civil as an army to me. Like um, the land's invaded, they're fighting. Well, I don't know if the land's invaded. The Donbass want to be Russian. Um, you have to go back to 2014. Azov started this war, but the CIA started with the Q when they overthrew Lutsenko. You know what I mean? Um, a Russian breakdown, Russian forces breakdown. The media outlets like Media Zone and the BBC have confirmed over 241,000 specific soldiers by name using public death notices. Now, these are Russians. Um, Also using state registries and accounting for unlisted death total Russian fatalities and widely believed to have around is is around the half a million. Like this half a million keeps it coming up. So maybe Russia have lost half a million troops, but like I remember in 2022, the guy on Sky News told us Russia ran out of troops and you were fighting in the trenches with shovels. So when I heard that, I don't believe none of this Western shit. Ukrainian breakdown. Let's break down what Ukrainian losses think they are. And what I'm going to tell you is from Zelensky's. So, delusional. Well, Zelensky officially confirms 43,000 military deaths. Cuckoo land. Fucking cuckoo land. Independent think tanks like the CS or yes estimate the true death toll is way, way higher. Nothing that Ukraine experiences a high fatality rate related to its total casualty pool, which means they're giving a lower death toll to what their death pool is. They're just fucking lying. They're lying. They're losing the war. Zelensky wants money. He wants coke. He wants planes. He wants submarines. He wants houses. Um, the guy's not even a legit president anymore. Like he's over. I think he's 3 years over his stay. That's why he doesn't want this war to end because he's going to prison. I think the Ukrainian people, like, if your son was pulled off the streets into a van and sent to the front line, man, you'd be out for that man's blood. That man is nasty. Zelensky's a bit of a problem. And then like Ukrainian sources, they got angry, looking into this, like they have open source tracking projects, like VAR losses verified by independent groups. Who are these independent groups? Have documented over 96,000 named Ukrainian fighter deaths. But he's gone with the same thing that media zone are going with. That's how many they've buried. Know what I mean? Then if you also remember, there's also a conspiracy that if they get injured in Ukraine and you still have good organs, Ukraine's might be one of the biggest organ sellers in the world at the moment. You're worth a few bob. So you're just put down as missing in action. So maybe that's why, just to me, maybe why some of the Ukrainian losses might be a bit lower than we're being told. Jesus. They're saying independent source are saying more than 550,000 military personnel and over 25,000 civilians are estimated to have been killed since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine began in February 22. Let's just forget about the people that were killed in 2014, because both nations treat their losses as strictly classified secrets. It's just shocking. Shocking, 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 shocking. Now we get to bit in White League. I'm going to talk about a bit in White League. The UN officially verified 16,874 civilian deaths inside Ukraine. This isn't a bit leak, not this bit. No, I don't like that at all. The UN repeatedly emphasizes that actual figure is higher, especially Mariupol, where thousands of deaths remain unrecorded, where no one ever got into Mariupol. And from the videos I seen at the start of that war, the Akhmat forces, which are Chechen, absolutely destroyed that place. Um, I seen a video of a cathedral, and there's a Patrick Lancaster, the reporter, went down, like, and it was just full of dead bodies. The Akhmat forces were just in tanks, just bombing apartment blocks, just bombing them, bombing them, bombing them. Civilians were being shot down, like, I say the civilian rate, or the civilian numbers in Mariupol was in the tens of thousands. And I don't like saying that because, but the Russian government report that 8,434 civilians have been killed within Russians recognized borders and occupied border territories due to cross-border Ukrainian shelling and drone streaks. Now that number's gone through the roof, I reckon, in the last month since they started using them shadow storm missiles, and they started blowing up wildberry warehouses and oil and foilies and all. So I just couldn't get the information for. But this, this is what I want to get to here. Um, which one want to talk about? I want to talk about 312 2014, before the full scale invasion. The initial phase of the war in the Donbass region in 2014 to 21 had already resulted in an estimated 14,200 to 14,400 total deaths, including 10,000 civilians. So people ask, why did Putin invade Ukraine? That's why Russians were being killed. Like, it's still a it was a special military operation which he went in. I think he thought, as we all did, that would be a walk in the park for him. But Ukraine was saying to be good. They're good fighters. Like, they put up a good fight. The Russians aren't idiots, know what I mean? Like, but most of these Russians that were killed, like, you have to remember, like, a lot of them were the Luhansk People's Republic. They were like not mercenaries. They were just people from that area that were trained by Wagner to fight. So, like, at the start of the war, that's who was mostly used. And Putin gave them top of the range APCs, tanks, and all. If you remember the Kiev, the 3 mile long wide fucking stuck in the mud, all the armored carriers and all, and they were all just destroyed. and that's what kind of killed the march to Kiev. But just when you think of this war, just don't forget about 2014. Like, just never forget about 2014. Um, I have a mate called Alex. He's from Belarus. He served in Syria with Wagner. Um, he wouldn't do an interview live. So he says if I send you around a couple of questions, will you answer them? I sent him 25 and he answered 20. Um, I'm gonna have what he sent me. It's the first question I asked him, what was your primary motivation for joining Wagner Group and deploying to Syria? His simple answer was financial compensation was the main driver alongside promised state-backed legal immunity because he had convictions. That's why he went. How did your unit coordinate battlefield operations with your official Russian army in Syria? We shared air support and logistics through Moscow. Officially, or we shared air support and logistics, though Moscow officially denied air connection. Moscow denied we were there. Three, Alex, what specific military operatives was your unit tasked with capturing from Syrian opposition forces? Their main targets were oil fields, gas plants, and strategic infrastructure near Palmyra and Dezo, or DIZ, which was an ISIS hotbed. Um, ISIS held out them oil fields at the time. Actually, in America helped them, which we'll get to in a bit. How did the chain of command function between Wagner leadership and Syrian government forces? Wagner forces gave the commands and orders, while Syrian forces, mostly high on grass, provided secondary ground support. They were not highly skilled or motivated fighters. Question 5. What types of heavy weaponry and military gear did Russia provide to your unit? We received T-72 tanks, APC carriers, and standard Russian infantry firearms. Nice. Um, do you all know about the Battle of Kassam, where a group of Wagner and Syrian forces went to take an oil field, and the oil field was protected by Americans, and three times the Americans made a phone call to say to Russia to say, "Have you troops in the area?" And three times Russia says, "No, we've no troops in the area," and he got absolutely wiped out. This guy survived this by hiding in a ditch. So I asked him, "Can I ask you about the Battle of Kassam?" We agreed not to talk about this subject. I lost many friends there, but go ahead. What specific orders did your unit receive prior to February 2018 attack in the Azov? We were ordered to seize the oil refinery held by the Syrian Democratic Forces, the name Al Qaeda used in Syria. So you had Americans with Al Qaeda protecting oil fields. Like, like geopolitics is fucking crazy. Crazy. At what point did you realise that the US military forces were launching a counterattack? They did not attack straight away. They gave the three standard artillery strikes. The order came to keep advancing. Then the artillery and airstrikes were immediate, overwhelming, and cut off air communications. If you stayed in your APC or tank you died. The only people who lived through that mission were the ones who hid in a water duct or played dead. Russia had MiGs 50 miles away. Still to this day, they deny Russians were there. The Americans were dropping bombs from the sky at approximately every 10 seconds for hours and hours and hours. Never stop. Question 8. Jesus, that's the Americans three times because the Russians there. Russia says no, but that's what he told me. Like that's what Wagner is. Like you take Wagner, it's all there's no plausibility if you're caught. Russia say no, 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 no. It's only really in Bakhmut where we really saying that. Like, and we even saying the beef in Bakhmut between Soigel and Bogos and over not getting the shells and Wagner being killed because they hadn't got enough artillery because the Russian Federation weren't supplying them. Like could have been a bit of jealousy there. I don't know. Bogosian was a good when I do the Wagner expose. Like Bogosian and Houghton are like that. Like a lot closer than anyone ever thought. What beyond now? Question eight. So how did your local command respond when the US military intended contact during that engagement? Our local commanders panicked because the expected Russian air cover never arrived. An American report said the Air Force dropped bombs every 10 seconds. It's like, and I believe like it was a like, I think there was something like 300 Wagner's mercenaries there, but I think the Syrian forces had something like 2,000. Like it was a big. He actually answers that question. I think. What was the actual casualty count among Wagner fighters during that single night? Scores of fighters died instantly, though official reports heavily downplayed final numbers. I believe they included the Syrian losses as Wagner deaths. The The brief the night before says up to 1,200 Syrian soldiers were available. I don't know how many that morning took part, as most were just high and might as well not have been there at all. Jesus Christ. Don't know how we Wagner commanders just didn't get the sledgehammer out of them. How did the Russian government handle the wounded and dead fighters returning from the mission? The wounded died on secret night flights, and families received closed coffins with no disclosure agreements. That's well, at least when the don't mean this in a bad way, but at least when he died in Ukraine and Bakhmut and all, the family got a few bob, but these lads got nothing. The family got nothing. Closed coffins, probably because the bodies were in peace. How much money, Alex, were you paid per month? And how was the salary delivered to you? We earned roughly 2,500 to 3,000 monthly, paid strictly into bank accounts in Russia. As a builder, I couldn't get paid as the Wagner PMC, so their contracts said they were whatever, chefs, whatever the fuck. What was the living conditions like at the main Wagner transit base in Syria? Conditions at the base are killing and T4 were basic, hot and sticky, and hidden from journalists. How did you maintain communication with family and friends while deployed on active Syrian fronts? Smartphones were confiscated, and we could only use heavily monitored secure lines occasionally. Question 14 I asked him was, what disciplinary actions did commanders take against fighters who break operational rules. Violations led to severe physical beatings, docked pay, or immediate abandonment at the front. If you want my opinion, abandonment is worse than the Wagner sledgehammer. But I don't. I think what he means by abandonment means he just drive it in the middle of the desert and leave you there. Or they drive it to the front line and leave you there to be probably beheaded by ISIS. I don't know. But he thinks that's better. And I'm gonna read a paragraph out of a book about what they do with that sledgehammer. And then I'm gonna end it live because tomorrow we're gonna start the Wagner expose. Jesus. What I read about this sledgehammer, he said abandonment. He'd rather take abandonment. And, and look, the sledgehammer isn't a slow death neither. No, no, no. How did the local Syrian population treat Wagner during your deployment? Locals viewed us with deep fear and suspicion. Always interaction. Sorry, fear and suspicion. Avoiding interaction whenever possible. Only spoken to. Only spoken to. 16. What specific paperwork or contracts did you sign before departing for Syria? We signed vague private security contracts with front companies, never mentioning the name Wagner. That's where we were saying earlier on, they signed up as carpenters and things and whatever, roofers or whatever. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Um, the guy has PTSD. Like, I very rarely talking about this type of stuff. How did you process the official stance from Moscow that your unit did not exist? We accepted it as part of the job, no deniability. You were paid 2.5 to 3 grand because it's a water leak. At least, like, if you're an American or you're a soldier and you're abandoned, they come and look for you. Like, these guys, I couldn't imagine them fucking. Right, so we're on 18 now. We've three more that he answered. He wouldn't answer five, and maybe they just done something to him, I don't know. What psychological impacts do you suffer from after witnessing the brutality of the Syrian conflict? Many veterans face severe PTSD, substance abuse issues. I'm lucky in Ireland. The state provides me psychological support. That is not provided in Russia. Shocking. Shocking. You know what I mean? Like, when I do hear, like, on the news painting those three soldiers as me, sometimes I believe it. He loves Russia now, but when I heard him one day saying that you've lost something like 60 or 70,000 people and troops taken back from you, and he says, well, we lost 20 million in World War I, World War II, or even more. I think it was fucking 20, 30, 40 million or something. When I heard him saying that, he says, this guy is top. Like, I mean, like he just, to him, everyone's just a soldier, fight for your country. Like, and he hasn't declared war yet, so, and it's close because, especially with Britain making these drones now, we can see them fucking bombing Britain if them drones start causing havoc. The first place I think if you ever bombs outside Ukraine would be Poland, because Poland is on the border of Poland with Ukraine is where they store all them shadow um cruise missiles that Britain give them and a lot of other stuff. So them warehouses I think be struck first with hypersonic missiles. I think Poland or Germany. Hopefully not, because we're in trouble if stuff like that starts. 19. How did the death of Gagosian alter the loyalty of former Syrian veterans? From what I was told, it fractured their trust completely, forcing them between state contracts or hiding, which I believe meant some of them joined. the Russian army, and some of them went into hiding. 20. I had to ask this question. Would you ever consider deploying as a mercenary to another conflict zone again? Darden, you really want me to answer that question? I think you're high, Darden. I'd rather eat shit. So I thought that good bit of insight into what them guys went through over there, you know what I mean? Um, I would have liked you to have 5 questions answered, but like, I asked them, like, we see prisoners being raped and stuff like that and all, know what I mean? Like, I asked him about the sledgehammer. He didn't want to talk about it. I'm gonna read something about the sledgehammer now to you. So like, I would like to talk about that stuff. So like, I don't blame him, but I'm gonna read something here that I have about the goals and sledgehammer. I have to look down because I have to read, so I won't be facing the camera. I'm sorry. In early November 2019, Novaya Gazeta, the last surviving independent Russian newspaper, secretly supported and protected by Mikhail Gorbachev, broke news about a gruesome 2 minute social media footage from Syria that had first been released online on the 30th of June 2017. The video had been shot by soldiers, but leaked videos such as this one were rare as mercenaries were banned from posting about their missions on social media. The clip showed a victim who had been identified as 32-year-old Mohammed Taha El Abdallah by Arab news outlet. Hold on, what's this? Hold on, let's get this off the screen. Um, Abdallah by Arab news outlet Jessor Press. He was from Deir ez-Zor. Jesus, the place where they were slaughtered. Syria must have been as a construction worker. Returning to Syria in April 2017, however, he was arrested and conscripted into the Syrian army of President Assad. In a phone call, he told his brother he would rather deflect than fight. That was the last time anyone in his family had heard from him. The video showed what happened to Mohammed. It seemed he had tried to desert while stationed at the Al Sahar oil field, but was caught. Accused of desertion, he was questioned before being pushed to the ground. Fellow soldiers laughed as they rained down blows with a sledgehammer on his legs, arms, and torso. After being beaten and kicked unconscious, his head is cut off with a knife and his arms severed with a shovel. Cut him harder. Come on, break his spine, one of his tormentors shouts in Russian. Keep the legs. We'll hang him by the legs, says another, speaking the same language. They wonder where to leave his mutilated body. Where the commander says one of them responds. So shall we play football today? Asks another as he kicks the decapitated head. A second severed head was also in the video shot. They hang Mohammed's body upside down by the feet and pose for the picture with the corpse before dousing it with petrol and setting fire to it. While the killers had covered faces with masks at the start of the video, they removed them from the group photo, which is left of Mohammed. Don't worry, no one would watch this video, one of them quips. The head is left dangling from a fence. The body has the words for the VDV Russian Airborne Forces scrawled across the torso. Mother of God. In the news article using face recognition technology, the Nova Gazette identified one of the tormentors as Stalinov Dichenko, a former police officer from the Stepopol region of southern Russia. According to documents including his ID, the newspaper had obtained, he had in 2016 become a reconnaissance gunner to defend the interests of the Russian Federation it was a defining moment. He later joined Wagner as an employment questionnaire and a punitive non-disclosure agreement showed that Jericho had joined an ethnic group called Wagner Group PMC, and their link to the video associated the private military company with casual brutality of the most inhumane. Has callously media around the world began to take close interest in the Russian involvement in the company protected by Russian imperial officialdom. So that's where we are with Wagner. And over the next few weeks, we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to learn how Bogosian made his money, how Wagner, not Wagner, Bogosian started up a group called Trolls, which ain't the, remember the Russia guy, the, that, the thing he said that got, that got Trump into presidency first. Yeah, Russia did play a part in it. The evidence is there. I have the evidence. Um, trolls, trolls interfered in a lot of elections. Um, Prigozhin has more money than we think. Um, but the one thing he done is the one thing that Putin can't forgive, and that's been stabbed in the back. I believe he thought when he'd march on Moscow, thousands of Russians would support him, but they didn't. So Putin just sent a few gunships to blow up a couple of his tanks and say, "Oh, time to take a break, fuck off." But look, that's all I wanted to do tonight was just kind of do the war crimes, who investigates the war crimes, read out that interview, and just read that story about that sledgehammer because that shocked me, and kind of give us a heads up on who's pushing propaganda because there's no way like Russia, there's no way like for every what number like 96,000 to half a million. So they're saying for every one Ukrainian that dies, six Russians die. Still Ukrainian are losing ground, so like it doesn't make sense. Unless like for like every Russian soldier, every six Russian soldiers that die, 20 fucking Ukrainians die by a Russian drone. I don't know how they're getting these numbers, but it was very, very hard to get anything pro-Russian. Telegram is gone. Um, so Steve, I don't know how to send in the invites, mate. I'm finishing now anyway, Steve, because this was just kind of a test run tonight. This was tomorrow is the start of the long, 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 long Wagner expose. It's gonna be long because it's starting from Syria, it goes to Central African Republic, it goes to Libya, goes right through Africa, and then it ends up with them in Ukraine. I actually have it broken into three parts, and it could take me 3 or 4 nights to do each part. Um, I don't know how I done tonight. I hope I done well. If I done well, let me know in the chat. I think I done okay. I'm nervous. I've never done nothing like this before. Um, I remembered what I had to say. That was the main thing. Um, I'm happy with that. Real happy with that interview. Um, Steve, I have to talk to you about how to send out invites. Um, I just don't know how to use this studio. I really don't. Haven't got a clue. Yeah, I will get used to still, you know what I mean? But like there's 16 people there watching, like, but like for this Wagner, I suppose I'd like as many people they hear because people only know these people from back mute. These guys are animals, savages. Um, now like to me, these guys are just as bad as Azov. Like, I might hate Azov. As he says, like They didn't like they loved giving out the casualties, didn't they? These groups, these NGOs, Amnesty International, but he never gave us the casualties of the 2014 war when Azov went in and slaughtered tens and thousands of Russians in the Donbass, which forced Putin into this war because Azov wasn't going to stop. Azov were that powerful that the Ukrainian army couldn't even stop them, couldn't even tell them what to do. And you got to see how good how good of a army Azov was. They held out on Mariupol for a month, for I think nearly 2 months, and Mariupol was like destroyed. It's the only part of Ukraine where you can't get a death toll from for civilians. I think the Russians killed every civilian there because it's being rebuilt up. If you see Mariupol now on YouTube, it's just being rebuilt in the style of Russia. Um, I remember the Azov when they gave up in the steel factory and they were coming out when you had the strip and they had all the Nazi tattoos on them. Anyone remember that? They had all the the thunderbolts and the Nazi tattoos all over them and all like, and then some of them didn't, but any of them that did got the table ties around the hands and they were marched away. I think they got the bullet in the head. But because one of Putin's reasons for going to Ukraine was to denazify the country, you know what I mean? Like, but um the more I looked into Wagner, like eh, I think Putin has his own Nazi group. I think he has his own Nazi group. Right, guys, I think I'll end it at that. I don't even know how to end this live. Although I see end same up the top. Um, God bless everybody. Stephen, I got on to you about how to send out the link. Art sent out the link for me in the chat. That's how a couple of people got in. But I just have to click on something and send it. Is it like probably them three dots up there or something? Is it? Send feedback. Timestamp. No. Um, has to be something. Has to be just something that's on the screen though. Share, would it be share? Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have share and the link is up, but where do we send the link to? It just says WhatsApp. Like there is a share button there, Steve, but it's only giving me an option to send it to WhatsApp. So like look, I don't know how I done. I hope I done well. I think I done well. Um, it was it was just the kind of opener to what we're going to be doing. Um, the Wagner story is going to be great. Going to be great. Um, like in 3 months researching it, like, you know what I mean? In 3 months researching it. Some of it I'm not going to remember off the dome, so some of it I'm going to print out onto a piece of paper and, you know what I mean? Because I want to get it right. But I will do it right. I have to get this line right. This yellow was horrible, you know what I mean? I'm downstairs in the room we don't use with an American flag, and an Irish flag. Yeah, it is an Irish. Yeah, yeah, it is an Irish map underneath. Nothing on this side. But I'm gonna get made. I'm gonna get made. In the Liberty Market, your man makes signs, neon signs. I'm gonna get a no smoker out for a neon sign made. No leak for the background. So just and then the lighting. I need to do something with the lighting. You know what I mean? Because I only have like a light with a bleeding light shade around it. Um, but thanks everybody, man. I think I done okay. This is what got me doing this weeks ago was nerves, just nerves. Like the sweat is pumping out me. But I'm more nervous now just talking this than I was actually talking about the NGOs and the casualties and what and the lawyers, like, you know what I mean? Like, um, so yeah, yeah, I'll get better. I'll get better. The pronunciation of Russian words. I'll have to start asking Alex how to pronounce certain words. You know what I mean? Because but it's just crazy that battle Alex was in, like, and it was actually ISIS and bleeding America, like bombing fuck out of them. But then I suppose who runs Syria now? The ISIS leader. Do you know what I mean? So tomorrow's enemy's today's friend in politics, I suppose. No, 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 right, don't need a rub down, man. No, have Epsom salts there in the back. That will do me the world of good. Okay, folks, God bless. Love yous all. See us tomorrow. Wagner expose starts tomorrow. God bless everybody.